Hey guys, what's going on? This is Kyle at ProjectionHub, and I've got another video for you today. And I'm going to talk about one of the most common problems I see in business plans written for SBA loans, specifically for startups and acquisitions. And that is that people either have no idea about how to talk about themselves personally as it relates to the business, or there's this myth I've been running into for almost 10 years now, and that's that people somehow think it's better to separate the business and the personal stuff. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. In today's video, I'm going to show you some examples from a free business review I've done to show you the problem I'm talking about, as well as show you a couple of business plans where it's done really well, and just talk about some of the details as to why this is a significant thing that you want to have kind of nailed down in your business plan for the SBA loan application process. So just as a quick reminder, before I started writing business plans about 4+ years ago with ProjectionHub, I was an SBA loan officer for about 7 years. And so I've spent a lot of time reviewing lots and lots of business plans in the realm of SBA, and I'm going to use a little bit of that experience to talk about today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. All right, so we have a business plan pulled up, and this is one that I did a free business plan review for recently. So again, if this is your first video with ProjectionHub, or maybe I haven't mentioned this in recent videos, but I offer a free business plan review. So I'll link that down in the description below. Maybe there's a link popping up on the screen here where you can submit your business plan and I'll do a free review of it. Now, it's not going to necessarily end up on YouTube. In very select cases, I anonymize all of the data, change a bunch of the ones, so I have a nice example to use. But I will give you direct feedback personally on your business plans and things I would recommend, including tips like what I'm about to share. So in this business plan, which this is for a small, kind of like custom soda and treats business. So very short business plan. It's still kind of a work in progress, but they're missing a glaring thing that I see all the time in business plans. And that is, nowhere in this business plan does the owner talk about themselves. And especially because this business is going to start small. It's going to be owner operated. So the owner is going to be doing everything, right? It's going to be kind of a solo gig initially. Now, if it goes well and it expands, they'll hire some people, and that's great. But it's going to depend on them. And so, beyond, which is a strength, right? If you can start a business saying like, hey, it's just going to be me. I don't have to pay for employees. And you can realistically make that work. That sounds pretty good to a lender, right? If you can make a good case for that and your overhead is lower, that's great. But something I see all the time is that people don't talk about how they know how to run this business, and kind of like how they know what they're getting themselves into. So when I was an SBA loan officer, this was something that was a problem all of the time. And there was this weird tension between a lot of applicants I would talk to, especially startups, felt like they had received some advice, or it would be wise to separate themselves from the business as much as possible, right? They wanted the focus just to be on the business, the plan for the business. Even financially, they wanted that to be separate. And not only is that not realistic when going through that process, it's also, kind of leaving a huge strength off of the table. I kicked off this video saying this is a very common mistake, and it can be one that's very easy to solve or to fix unless you really don't have applicable experience. Then solving it and fixing that is a little bit more challenging. The way to solve it in that case is going to be getting a business partner, hiring a key employee, or someone that knows what they're doing. So if you have no idea about anything related to this business, no transferable skills, anything like that, then maybe consider a different business or adding a partner with experience. But let's assume you have some transferable skills from a different career, something else that you've done, some experience you have, or, the jackpot is if you have very relevant experience. So maybe you've worked in this exact type of business before or managed it before. So that's the dream scenario. But it's very important to talk about yourself. So when you go through that application process for an SBA loan, especially if it's an existing business, that doesn't really count in this case, because like if it's an existing business, you have experience clearly in the business. But for startups and acquisitions, you're going to have to be able to prove, not only your personal financial and creditworthiness standpoint, but also just from an operations, like, do you know what you're doing? Does the lender have confidence in you that you're going to be able to follow through on this? And a big part of that too is because, especially in retail, that a lot like this business, for example, too. And I saw this all the time when I was a lender. Two I can actually recall specifically. One was for a startup donut shop, and then the other was a startup like sandwich kind of fast casual place. Similar situation. The owner was going to be doing a lot of the legwork, the grunt work themselves initially to save money, but they hadn't really worked in this type of industry before. They had some corporate experience, So that, they knew how to market, they knew how to do all the administrative stuff. That was pretty easy for them to adjust to. But what they didn't really anticipate was that they were giving themselves essentially a minimum wage job. Now, maybe they made more money than that, but early mornings, getting food ready, working just that type of customer service, like it's a pretty grueling job in that environment. So there's a lot of important reasons why a lender wants to know what the applicant has experience-wise. Do you know how to do the things logistically? Do you have competency and related skills? And also, do you just know what to expect when you're getting into this type of business? So we're not, the point is not to go through and rip apart this business plan. I actually think they did a really nice job and are setting themselves up well for success. But that's something I see it's a dime a dozen. I see them all the time. So hopping over to some other business plans. These are real business plans from clients I've worked with. So they're all anonymous. Again, I've changed all the names and locations and all that kind of stuff. But just to give you some quick examples, right here in the executive summary, owner background. We talk about she was starting a direct pay clinic herself. So she's talking about her medical experience, that she knows exactly what she's doing. She has a really nice social media following, and she's going to be doing some stuff with that. So clearly, after reading that, it's like, oh, they know what they're doing, right? So now reading through the rest of the plan, the lender's going to have that context of they don't have to worry about if this has been done before or if the applicant really knows what they're doing, because we already know that. So it kind of helps moving forward beyond that point. And in this one over here, so in this case, this was an example where the applicant, the business owner, had very relevant experience. So that's a big win. But in this one, this is an example where the applicant didn't have direct experience. They're opening a laundromat. I think the goal was to open up a few laundromats. But when we talk about their experience here, again, we talk about it. Him and his wife were kind of doing a tandem this, and they'd never worked in a laundromat before, but they did have relevant skills. They've worked in customer service for many years, public facing roles, some management experience, 15 years in law enforcement, familiar with people in the community. So they've never ran a laundromat before, but they have very transferable skills. And, it's probably worth mentioning the degree of your experience matters more depending upon the type of business, the complexity of the business, right? So a laundromat is not an overly complex business, but it matters if you know how to work with people. If you are an active member of your community, that probably helps. So, just being mindful and involved what you're doing in the community makes sense. Whereas, opening up a medical clinic or a doctor's office, it's you got to have very direct experience to do that. So yeah, that's my advice for you. And hopefully this wasn't a clickbaity thing. I think sometimes it might sound cliche and people think it doesn't go a long way, but I'm begging you, be prepared and just own your involvement in your startup or your acquisition, especially an acquisition. I didn't talk about that a lot, but that's going to be a very big deal for the lender. It's why are you buying a business if you don't have any idea how to run it? So both of, startup and acquisition, these are going to be a big deal. So be prepared to gather the experience if you don't have it, or a team member or a partner who does have that experience, or think about your career and the types of skills. Think about the skills and experience that would be really helpful in the environment of the business you're trying to start. Think about the experience that you have. Are there some obvious overlaps there? And highlight those things in your business plan and just kind of own it. You're a part of this. You're a big part of the business. And I even just showed you the executive summary. I like to mention it in the executive summary, but then also when you get down into the operations section of your business plan, talking about the management of the business, I think give you an example over here, operations down into management. Then you can go in a little bit greater detail about the specific experience that you bring from other jobs, other roles, education, all that kind of stuff, and talking about that in greater detail. So that's my recommendation to you. Again, take advantage of the free SBA review. Your business plan isn't going to end up on YouTube, I promise you. I always have permission or fully anonymize the business plans. But yeah, would love to give you some free pointers and some feedback on your business plan and things to better prepare you for an SBA loan process. So if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more from us, or drop a comment down below, or contact us at support@projectionhub.com if you've got some specific questions about your business plan or navigating the SBA loan process, and we'd be happy to help. Thanks.